In a political landscape marked by division and discontent, the Democratic Party faces a formidable challenge under the new leadership of Ken Martin, who recently assumed the role of chair of the Democratic National Committee (DNC). As frustration mounts among party members and constituents alike, Martin's task is not only to unify a fractured party but also to outline a compelling vision capable of winning back voters who have drifted towards the Republican Party. At a recent demonstration outside the Capitol, Democratic lawmakers were met with boos and urgent calls from protesters demanding action against President Donald Trump's administration, particularly regarding its efforts to dismantle the U.S. Agency for International Development. This scene encapsulates a broader sentiment within the Democratic Party, where many feel disillusioned by the party's lack of a coherent strategy to counter Trump's increasing influence. "We got punched in the mouth in November," Martin remarked, emphasizing the urgent need for Democrats to present a tangible alternative to the chaos of the current administration. Polling data reveals a troubling trend. Many voters believe the country is headed in the wrong direction, yet Trump's focus on pragmatic issues has resonated more effectively than the Democrats' warnings about his presidency. A CBS/YouGov poll indicated that 53% of U.S. adults approve of Trump's performance, underscoring the uphill battle for Democratic leaders like Martin. "We need to fight the extremes of Donald Trump while making a case in both red and blue states," he added, reflecting a commitment to bridging the party's divides. The Democratic Party's internal strife is compounded by a lack of clear leadership. Figures like Senate Minority Leader Charles Schumer and Representative Nancy Pelosi have found themselves increasingly criticized, particularly from the party's progressive wing, which is calling for a more aggressive stance against the GOP. Representative Hakeem Jeffries, the new leader of House Democrats, is perceived by many as too conciliatory, leaving a leadership vacuum that hinders the party's ability to rally support. Cory Booker, a prominent Democratic senator, cautioned protesters against infighting, urging unity in the face of Republican opposition. Yet with the GOP controlling both the House and Senate, the federal courts remain the primary check on Trump's authority. This dynamic has left Democrats feeling cornered as they grapple with their diminishing legislative power and seek to re-establish their relevance in a rapidly shifting political environment. Analysts suggest that the Democrats' messaging must pivot towards economic issues to reclaim the working-class voters who have shifted allegiance to Trump. Schumer and Jeffries are reportedly concentrating on how Trump's economic policies impact everyday lives, while also launching targeted attacks against high-profile figures like Elon Musk, who is perceived as emblematic of the GOP's disregard for the federal bureaucracy. Leah Midgarden, treasurer of the Minnesota DFL party, criticized the Democratic Party for losing touch with its traditional base, asserting that Martin's leadership must herald a new direction. "We have to stop being so goddamned Midwestern and brag about putting policies in place that actually help people," she stated, reflecting a desire for a more assertive Democratic narrative. The recent DNC elections, which saw Martin replace Jamie Harrison, are seen as a potential turning point for the party. With a newfound focus on aggressive communication strategies, including the creation of a rapid response war room to counter Trump's narrative, there is hope that the Democrats can reclaim their brand as champions of the working class. However, as the party grapples with its identity, external voices like Joe Rogan have emerged criticizing the party for failing to learn from its electoral defeats. In a recent conversation, Rogan lamented that many Democrats remain entrenched in ideology, risking further alienation of potential supporters. "They're gonna keep shedding people," he warned, highlighting the urgency for the party to adapt to changing political dynamics. Looking ahead, the New Jersey governor's race serves as a microcosm of the broader challenges facing the Democratic Party, with immigration emerging as a contentious issue among candidates. The party will have to navigate deeply divided opinions while trying to appeal to both progressive and moderate voters. As State Party Chair Leroy Jones aptly noted, those national issues are going to loom large, indicating that the outcome of this race could offer insights into the party's ability to regroup after recent losses. In conclusion, the Democratic Party stands at a crossroads, with Ken Martin's leadership seen as a potential catalyst for change. Yet whether the party can effectively unify its factions and resonate with voters remains to be seen. As they prepare for upcoming elections, the ability to articulate a clear, inclusive, and economically focused message will be crucial in determining their political future. The stakes have never been higher. And the path forward will require both strategic foresight and a willingness to confront uncomfortable truths about the party's direction and priorities. In the evolving landscape of American politics, few figures embody the intricate dance of party loyalty and individual conviction quite like Senator Susan Collins of Maine. As President Donald Trump resumes a commanding presence in Washington, Collins finds herself navigating the treacherous waters of a Republican Party increasingly defined by Trump's influence. This delicate balancing act is particularly critical as she gears up for her own re-election bid in 2026, a race that could see her challenged from both the far right and the left. Since Trump's return to the White House, Collins has displayed a pattern of selective dissent. While she has voted against confirming Trump's nominee for Defense Secretary Pete Hegseth, citing a lack of experience, she supported other cabinet picks and plans to endorse Tulsi Gabbard for Director of National Intelligence and Robert F. Kennedy Jr. for Secretary of Health and Human Services. I always hear from people on both sides of the aisle who are unhappy with some of my votes or actions, Collins remarked, acknowledging the high stakes of her position. The last 3 weeks the volume is higher, but there's nothing that unusual about it. Collins plays a unique role among her GOP colleagues, particularly as the only Republican senator representing a state that favored Democrats in the 2024 election. Political analysts suggest that her independent streak may be the key to her survival in a state that leans blue. Most Republicans and Republicans with good sense understand that running in Maine is not the same as running in a deep red state, Republican strategist Matt Gorman noted, underscoring the nuanced approach Collins must take to secure her seat. Her tenure has been characterized by a history of walking a fine line, often breaking ranks with her party when it aligns with her constituents' interests. For instance, she opposed efforts to repeal the Affordable Care Act and voted against Betsy DeVos for Secretary of Education during Trump's first term. Despite this, she proved pivotal in confirming Brett Kavanaugh to the Supreme Court, a decision that bolstered her standing among Republicans even as it drew ire from many Democrats. Looking ahead to 2026, Collins has already announced her intentions to run for a sixth term, a campaign that could prove challenging. Speculation surrounds potential primary challenges from pro-Trump factions within the party as well as a formidable Democratic opponent, possibly Governor Janet Mills. The National Republican Senatorial Committee is preparing to invest significantly in her campaign, with estimates ranging from $400 million to $600 million dedicated to ensuring her victory. Trump's unpredictable nature adds another layer of complexity to Collins' political landscape. While he may understand the electoral dynamics at play, his history of retaliating against those who oppose him complicates her strategic maneuvering. Collins' support for former South Carolina Governor Nikki Haley in the 2024 Republican primaries could further strain her relationship with Trump and his supporters. As Collins prepares for the upcoming election cycle, her ability to navigate the challenges posed by both Trump and a potentially resurgent Democratic opposition will be critical. If she's not the Republican nominee in Maine, it won't be good, Collins asserted, emphasizing the stakes involved not just for her own career but for the Republican Party's future in a state that could easily swing against them. In the broader context, Collins' political journey exemplifies the ongoing struggle within the GOP between traditional conservatism and Trumpism, a dynamic that is likely to shape the party's narrative in the years to come. As the dust settles from the current political maneuvers, observers will undoubtedly be watching closely to see how Collins manages to maintain her independent brand while catering to the shifting demands of her party and her constituents. In a significant reshaping of the U.S. health policy landscape, Robert F. Kennedy Jr. has officially been sworn in as the Secretary of Health and Human Services. His confirmation comes against a backdrop of partisan tension, with Kennedy, a former presidential candidate and controversial figure, stepping into a role that oversees key health agencies responsible for the welfare of millions of Americans. Kennedy's confirmation on Thursday, which passed with a narrow 52-48 vote in the Senate, has sparked considerable debate. Notably, no Democratic senators supported him, and even Senate Minority Leader Mitch McConnell cast a dissenting vote, citing concerns over Kennedy's history of promoting health misinformation and skepticism regarding vaccinations. His appointment marks a pivotal moment for the Biden administration as it seeks to finalize its cabinet amid a busy legislative agenda. As the new head of the Department of Health and Human Services, Kennedy will be responsible for managing an expansive portfolio that includes the Centers for Disease Control and Prevention (CDC), the Food and Drug Administration (FDA), and the National Institutes of Health (NIH). With a workforce of approximately 80,000 employees and a budget exceeding $1 trillion, Kennedy's decisions will have far-reaching implications for public health policy in the United States. Kennedy's appointment has been met with skepticism from various quarters, particularly given his affiliation with the anti-vaccine movement through his leadership of the Children's Health Defense, a group known for spreading doubts about the safety of vaccines. During his confirmation hearings, Kennedy attempted to clarify his stance, insisting that he supports rigorous testing and safety protocols for vaccinations rather than an outright opposition to them. However, many lawmakers expressed concern that his past statements could undermine public trust in health institutions at a time when such trust is crucial. The political ramifications of Kennedy's confirmation extend beyond health policy. His appointment could influence discussions around food safety, pharmaceutical regulations, and broader public health initiatives. Some Republicans have praised Kennedy for his critical stance on food additives and his advocacy for reducing the influence of large pharmaceutical companies. However, his past comments on immunizations led to heated exchanges during his confirmation hearings, where he faced sharp questioning about his understanding of the healthcare system and public health challenges. Kennedy's confirmation comes alongside other high-profile appointments, including Tulsi Gabbard as the Director of National Intelligence. The Senate's swift action to confirm Kennedy reflects President Trump's determination to solidify his cabinet, even as questions linger about the implications of these appointments. As the Biden administration continues to navigate a complex political landscape, Kennedy's role will be scrutinized closely. The health sector is poised for potential upheavals, particularly as the nation grapples with ongoing public health crises, and Kennedy's administration may face challenges in restoring confidence in vaccines and public health measures. In a parallel political development, U.S. Senator Tina Smith of Minnesota has announced that she will not seek re-election in 2026, creating an open seat that could significantly alter the balance of power in the Senate. Smith's decision, framed as a personal choice rather than a political one, has already prompted potential candidates from both parties to emerge, indicating that the upcoming race may become highly competitive as Democrats aim to retain the seat. As the Biden administration continues to finalize its cabinet, Kennedy's leadership at Health and Human Services will be pivotal in shaping the future of U.S. health policy, while the shifting political landscape in Minnesota and beyond suggests that the 2026 elections could be marked by intense competition and significant implications for both parties. The coming months will reveal how Kennedy's controversial views will influence public health initiatives and whether Democrats can effectively rally support for their candidates in the face of shifting political tides. In a politically charged environment, the recent hearing by the House GOP Foreign Affairs Committee on February 13, 2025 has sparked significant debate over the future of U.S. foreign aid, particularly through the lens of the U.S. Agency for International Development (USAID). The committee's discussions centered around accusations of betrayal against USAID, with former officials and experts testifying about the agency's perceived failures and the implications for American interests abroad. At the heart of the hearing was a panel featuring prominent figures, including former U.S. Representative Ted Yoho and Andrew Natsios, a former USAID administrator. They painted a stark picture of USAID's operations, claiming that the agency has strayed from its intended mission and failed to adequately represent U.S. values and interests on the global stage. USAID's mission should be to advance American interests, but it has often acted in ways that contradict those goals, Yoho asserted. echoing concerns that the agency has become overly bureaucratic and disconnected from the realities of international dynamics. Max Primorak, a senior research fellow at the Heritage Foundation, reiterated these sentiments, stating, "The agency has become a vehicle for distributing funds without accountability or clear strategic objectives." This criticism underscores a growing frustration among some lawmakers regarding the effectiveness of foreign aid and its role in achieving U.S. foreign policy objectives. The implications of this discontent are profound, particularly as the U.S. navigates its relationships with countries where aid is critical for stability. Critics argue that reducing the effectiveness of USAID could jeopardize U.S. interests by fostering environments where extremism can flourish, ultimately leading to greater security risks. If we pull back on our aid and support, we may find ourselves facing much larger problems down the line. Natsios warned. Compounding the issue is the recent political landscape following the 2024 U.S. House elections, where Republicans regained control, further fueling discussions around budget reconciliation and spending priorities. As Congress begins to craft the budget, proposals have emerged to significantly cut funding for programs like Medicaid, revealing a broader trend of prioritizing defense and tax cuts over humanitarian aid. This shift could lead to a reduction in the U.S.'s global engagement as resources are funneled away from international assistance. The budget reconciliation process, which allows Congress to expedite certain financial measures with a simple majority, is a focal point of concern. As noted by Julie Carter from the Medicare Rights Center, the House is aiming for drastic cuts to various supportive programs, including Medicaid, which provides essential health care to millions. These cuts could reflect a broader ideology that prioritizes domestic fiscal conservatism over international humanitarian commitments. This is not just about numbers, it's about lives, Carter emphasized, highlighting that cuts to Medicaid would ripple through the healthcare system, affecting vulnerable populations including older adults and those with disabilities. The interconnectedness of domestic and foreign aid, where funding cuts in one area could detrimentally affect the other, poses a complex challenge for lawmakers. As Congress deliberates on its budgetary direction in the wake of this hearing, the potential for significant shifts in U.S. foreign aid policy looms large. The outcomes of these discussions will not only define the future of USAID but also the broader strategic landscape of U.S. foreign relations. The need for a cohesive strategy that aligns domestic priorities with international responsibilities is more urgent than ever. Looking forward, stakeholders and advocates are likely to increase their efforts to influence the legislative process, urging a balanced approach that maintains America's role on the global stage while addressing domestic concerns. The coming weeks will be critical as the House prepares for a vote on its budget resolution, shaping the contours of U.S. foreign policy for years to come. The U.S. Supreme Court currently finds itself at a crossroads, with recent rulings igniting intense scrutiny and debate about the integrity of its justices and the implications of their decisions on American democracy. Among the most controversial outcomes is the affirmation of absolute immunity for presidents, as seen in the recent Trump versus United States ruling, which allows for actions that could be interpreted as criminal to evade accountability as long as they are deemed official acts. This decision has raised alarm bells across the nation, prompting concerns about the erosion of the rule of law. The fallout from this ruling has led to accusations that current Supreme Court justices, including Chief Justice John Roberts and Justices Samuel Alito, Neil Gorsuch, and Brett Kavanaugh, previously misrepresented their views during Senate confirmation hearings. Each justice testified under oath that no one is above the law, including the president, only to later support a ruling that suggests otherwise. Legal experts and commentators have indicated that this contradiction may amount to perjury, a serious crime under Title 18 of the U.S. Code. The question remains, why has the Department of Justice not pursued charges against these justices? Brian Vukadinovich, a former executive director for the Posner Center of Justice, highlights the gravity of this situation, arguing that allowing justices to operate without accountability undermines the foundational principle that nobody is above the law. With impeachment seemingly off the table in today's hyper-partisan climate, Vukadinovich asserts that the only viable recourse is for the Justice Department to act against what he describes as judicial miscreants. Concurrently, the actions of former President Donald Trump are raising further legal questions as he navigates through his assertive claims of executive power. The ongoing legal challenges to Trump's policies, particularly his attempts to unilaterally reshape federal agencies and disregard congressional appropriations, bring the debate over the unitary executive theory to the forefront. This legal doctrine posits that the president holds comprehensive authority over the executive branch, even in opposition to congressional mandates. Critics argue that Trump's expansive interpretation of this theory could dismantle essential checks and balances designed to prevent overreach by the executive branch. Trump's recent maneuvers, including the dismissal of independent agency heads and attempts to alter citizenship rules, have sparked lawsuits that could lead to significant Supreme Court decisions. Legal scholars warn that if the court endorses Trump's approaches, it could lead to a future where presidential power is virtually unchecked, fundamentally altering the landscape of American governance. The implications of these developments are profound. If neither Congress nor the Supreme Court can restrain executive actions, the very fabric of American democracy may be at risk. The absence of accountability for the Supreme Court justices, coupled with the potential normalization of expansive executive authority under Trump, raises critical questions about the viability of the checks and balances that have historically defined the U.S. government. Looking ahead, the upcoming legal battles and potential Supreme Court cases will be pivotal in determining whether the nation can uphold the principle that no one, not even the president or Supreme Court justices, is above the law. As these challenges unfold, the future of American democracy hangs in the balance, and the choices made by the judiciary will resonate for generations to come.